Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. The nadhar, vow, in Islam is when you make it obligatory on yourself for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do a good deed or refrain from doing something. It is sometimes called minnat in some communities. Some people do nadhar, vow, to pass their exams or to get a job or to be blessed with children, or indeed to stop doing something haram such as watching inappropriate scenes or clips. In the Holy Quran we find examples of people who practiced the vow and were praised for it. For instance, the mother of Mary made a vow that the child she was carrying in her womb would serve Baytul Maqdis. Unfortunately though, it seems that nadhar, the vow, is being practiced incorrectly by some people. And so here are 10 important things we should all know about vows in Islam. Number 1, as with many other things in Islamic law, there is a particular way to establish a nadhar. Some people, for instance, say, I make the nadhar to fast for a year if I get a particular job. This is invalid and does not stand, i.e., it's not considered a nadhar in Islam. We often get questions by people on what to do if they've made the vow but not kept it. Well, the first thing to do is to check whether it was actually uttered correctly. The nadhar can be recited in any language as long as the way is done is according to Sharia. In Arabic, it must contain lillahi alayhi. In English, it must say, it is incumbent upon me for the sake of Allah, or I vow for the sake of Allah. Just saying I make a vow or I vow is insufficient. So, if you want to ensure the vow is legitimate, it must be said correctly. If, for example, you say, Oh Allah, if I have enough money to go for ziyarah this year, then I will pay £100 to the poor. This is a dua and not a nadhar. The right way to say it is this: I vow for the sake of Allah that if I go for the ziyarah this year, I will pay £100 to the poor. Notice the difference. Number 2, if a vow is made in the heart and not uttered by the tongue, it is not established and does not have to be upheld. Number 3, a vow must be said by someone who is baligh, sane. It must be said intentionally and under no coercion. Number 4, the nadhar must be for something possible to achieve, otherwise it becomes invalid. For example, you can't say this: I vow for the sake of Allah, if I walk to Iraq from London in one day, I will pray 100 rakats. Clearly that's not possible. Number 5, it is also not possible to make a vow for something that is haram or indeed makruh, discouraged. Similarly, we cannot make a nadhar to refrain from doing something wajib or mustahab, recommended. For example, a wrong nadhar is the following: I vow for the sake of Allah that if I am able to win in a bet, I will donate what I win to charity. This is wrong since betting is haram. Number 6, it is discouraged to make vows which may feel difficult to accomplish and uphold. For example, some people might say, I vow for the sake of Allah that if my son is cured from his illness, I will fast every day for the rest of my life. This is clearly a huge burden and indeed very difficult to accomplish, if at all possible. Number 7, the nadhar does not have to be tied to something to be done as a result, i.e., we could just say, I vow for the sake of Allah not to watch any haram movies this year, and stop there. Number 8, the kafara for intentionally not fulfilling the nadhar is as follows: feeding 10 poor people or clothing them, or if this is not possible, then to fast for 3 consecutive days. Number 9, in chapter 76 of the Holy Quran we find the story whereby Imam Ali alayhi salam, Sayyida Fatima, Imams Hassan and Hussein alayhim salam, as well as their servants observed the fast for 3 days as a result of a nadhar, vow. This was to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant the young Imams cure from an illness. What this tells us is that nadhar of fasting for 3 days is highly recommended for seeking of health and shifa from sickness. And finally, number 10, making a vow is also good at helping us stay away from sins. since it becomes a deterrence between us and the disobedience of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, if someone wants to stop listening to haram music, they can say the following: I vow for the sake of Allah that if I listen to haram music, I will donate £100 to the orphans. The thought of constantly giving this amount will invariably place a barrier between them and listening to that haram music track. So, it's a useful tool to enhance spirituality. If you have any questions, send it via the Ask the Sheikh section on islamiced.org.